Hey everyone, in this video, we're going to go over class-based views, or just kind of the basics of how class-based views works. In the previous video, we went over these function-based views, and now we'll go over a class-based view mainly focused on, if I can find it right here, on this API view class so we can inherit from to build really basic class views from that. So we'll go ahead and go over this and how it works, and kind of basics of how views work in this format instead of functions, but the general ideas will be about the same, just a different way of doing it. But this is very useful because once we can create class-based views, we can use Django's generic views, which you can see under API guide generics views in the documentation, and they have all these different generic views that make using or creating views in Django much easier. And we'll go over all of these in the next video, but for now we're going to focus just on the basics. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we'll create a new class view underneath our function view. And this view, we're going to go ahead and use one of our models. So we have this artist model in our models.py file. I'm going to go ahead and use this just for a couple of tests. I'm not going to go anything too in depth with this, but just create a really test view using that model. So I'll create a class, and I'll call this class artist view, and we'll inherit from that API view. And this gives us the basics functionality we need to create a class-based view. So I'll go ahead and import that up here at the top. I'll go ahead and do a from rest framework.views import API view. And now inside of our view here, we can go ahead and add some different functions. And so in our function view, we put these if statements to check the different methods. And in class-based views, instead of doing that, what we can do is we can create a method, just put def, and then the name of the method will be the HTTP request. So we can put a get to handle any get requests. And I'll go ahead and put a pass there for now. We can also go ahead and do a def post, and this will handle any post requests. As we can do this for any HTTP method, we can put the name of the method as the function name, and then this API view automatically knows how to handle that based off of the HTTP request type here, whether it's get, post, put, delete, or whatever. So now we have our two methods here we're going to use here. Let's go ahead and add some logic for our get method. So what we'll do here is we'll do an artist equals, we'll go ahead and grab all of our artists. So I'll do artist.objects.all. This will get all of our artist objects. Up here at the top, I need to make sure I import artist. So I'll do from.models import artist to import that artist model. Now down here, below this line here, I'll go and just return a response with all of our artists. So I'll just do return response, and I'll go ahead and do artist. Okay, let's go ahead and test this out real quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and run my server and then open up Insomnia, and we'll test out this get method. Okay, so I got my server running. Let's go ahead now and open up Insomnia, and we'll go ahead and actually, before we do this, we need to create a route for it. So just like we did for our function view, we need to go ahead and create a URL pattern for our new class view as well. And this will look slightly different. What we'll do here is we'll put a path, and we'll put, I'll just do artists for now. But then for the name of the function, we'll start by putting views.artist view. But for class-based views, we need to add one more line here. We got to do a dot as underscore view. And that's a function we call in our URLs for every class-based view. So every time we use a class-based view, whether it's the API view or any generic view, we need to make sure we have this at the end. Otherwise, it will not work. Okay, then we'll add a name as well, and I'll call this artist. Okay, and now if I go ahead and just do a get at /artist, go to /artist, and do a send on that. It needs to be HTTP, not HTTPS. HTTP send. Make sure you have a trailing slash at the end there, and we send that. Make sure it's a get request. It looks like we might have an error. Get takes 0 positional arguments, but 2 were given. Let's double check our function here. Oh, so I completely forgot to add in self and requests to both of these. Self and requests. Come back here, send the request, and there we go. And we have no artist, so it comes back with the empty array, but this is working. And for the arguments for get and post requests, there's different options we can throw in there as well. If you look at the documentation, there's some different keyword arguments they added. For example, they have this format argument. If you want to read on more about what those are and how they work, you can check out the documentation for the API view. You can read on the documentation if you want to see more about what those are, but the really basic view, all we need is self and request. So if you want to get more advanced, those are available to you. But to keep things simple, I'm just going to keep it just at the basic self and request for this tutorial. Okay, and so now we have our get method working. Let's go ahead and now do something with our post method. So now, instead of having to do this if statement, if request method equals post, all we need is a method called post, passing in self and requests, and we can run our logic here. So it just, in my opinion, is a little cleaner and a little easier to write. And so we can do it this way instead for our class-based views. So we can do a return response. And just like before, we want to get the post body in most cases when we use a post request. So we can get that just like we did in our function method with or our function view with this request object passed as a parameter. This method here has request object as well. We can use that just like we did. So I can do request.data just like we did before when we printed request.data here to get the post body. The post body for our class-based views is also in request.data. And then we can save this and now run this. So I come back to my Insomnia client here. We'll go to post. I'll add a JSON body and I'll just put tests and test data, and we'll send that. And it returns back data with our data. In this case, we passed in test and test data, and so that's what we get back right here. So that's the really basics of how you use class-based views. All you do is create a class, inherit from API view, and then you create methods inside that class for every different HTTP method you want to handle. And for a really basic view, that's all we need. There are other ways we can add more to this. Up here at the top, we could add a few different fields to help define the different features of this class. So for example, I can do permissions classes, and this equals a list. It'll pass in permissions.allow any. Let's go ahead and import permissions up here at the top real quick. So we'll do from REST Framework, import, actually we already have it imported up here, so we should be good. Make sure you have REST Framework, import permissions up here at the top, so this works. And this will set the permission classes for this view. If you're not familiar with what permission classes are, if you go to the documentation, I already have it open, but if you go to API guide and you go down to permissions, you can read up on permissions here and what they are. But generally what they are here is, together with authentication and throttling, permissions determine whether a request should be granted or denied access. So it just allows us to set rules on who can access this view. And the different options are over here to the left. Allow any allows anyone. Is authenticated allows only authenticated users. Is admin user only allows admin users. Is authenticated or read only will only allow authenticated users to do any sort of post or put request. And anything else, like down here it says the safe methods, get, head, and options, anyone can do because those are read only. And there's some more there, but those are the kind of the main ones. In our case here, we used allow any just so we don't have to worry about authenticating when we test this out. So we can put permissions dot, in this case, allow any as the permission classes for this view. And now this shouldn't change anything. We can go back here and send this request again, and it still works. But we were to change this to something else, and we tried sending the request as a not authenticated user. It should then fail. We can also set the authentication classes. So similar to permissions, we can do authentication classes equals authentication dot, and then whatever authentication class you want to add. So we can do something like token authentication. If you want to use tokens. And once again, in the documentation, I have it pulled up here, but you go to API guide, you go to authentication, you can see how to set up authentication and kind of what it is. Like it says here at the top, it's a mechanism of the sorting an incoming request with a set of credentials, so we can assign the user based off of the token or whatever we're sending in the request. And there's some examples down here of how to use that and what you can do with that. And this will be in the description if you want to read up more on that. Okay, and now we have that added. Let's go ahead back and change this to is authenticated. Now we come back into Insomnia and we send the request. Oh, I forgot to import authentication. So over the top, make sure we import authentication. So do from REST Framework, import authentication, and we'll save that. We'll come back here. We'll send the request. And everything is still working. Okay, and now just make sure we import authentication from the top, at the top here as well. So we'll do from REST Framework, import authentication, and we'll save that. And that should be it. And so that is generally how we set up class-based views at the very basic level. So if we compare this to our function view, we had to add decorators on our function view to add different things to this class. And in the case of a class-based view, all we need to do is set these fields above our methods here, outside of our methods. So we can set authentication classes, permission classes. We can set that throttle classes as well if we wanted to. We can do throttle classes equals once per day user throttle. Save that. Come back here to Insomnia, send the request, send it again, and then we get that error saying the request was throttled. So instead of using decorators like we do in functions, all we do is we put it as just these class fields outside of our methods on the class itself. And then instead of having to use this if statement to check the method, that's done automatically by setting methods with the different HTTP request types as the method names. Okay, so hopefully that gets you started on making views. With those two things, hopefully you can create some basic views now with Django. In the next video, we'll go over some more generic views and how we can actually really use our models fully and very easily by using different generic views to handle most of the harder logic for us. And so we'll get to that in the next video, but this is a good place to stop for now. So all the code will be available in the description below, as well as links to the docs. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.